Hey everyone, my name's Andy. My channel is Finding Value. If you're looking for undervalued investment opportunities, click subscribe. Today, I'm going to go over market conditions. I'm going to look at kind of the overall market and look at some tech stocks. They're looking pretty toppy. So let's take a look at the charts. This is technical analysis and what we see in some of the charts for technology companies, for the dollar, for yields, kind of just overall looking at the overall market and market conditions. So we're jumping in here. We've got inflation. Janet Yellen said that they may have to let rates rise some. It may be that interest rates will have to rise somewhat to make sure that our economy doesn't overheat. Yellen said during an economic seminar presented by The Atlantic, even though the additional spending is relatively small relative to the size of the economy, it could cause some very modest increases in interest rates. That's what she says. Here is the 10-year yield. The yield went through this kind of resistance line. I'd say we're back before COVID levels. This was that COVID sell-off. We were busting up, going to the upside in 2018. And then I don't know if the economy couldn't handle it, but you could see these rates really dive down here. This was a big move down before the crash happened in March of 2020. We see market crashes. Usually what happens is people run into bonds, like a big market crash. And you'll see this kind of run into bonds before it. It's almost like people know what's going to happen before it happens. We're not seeing that in interest rates right now. Interest rates are just sitting here above this support line. And I think they're going to go higher because of inflation at some point here. I think inflation is going to be quite rampant. We're already experiencing it. And I think yields are going to go and chase it higher. Here's zoomed in on this area in here. This is what it looks like. We're moving on up. We do have some resistance up here. I don't know. I know they're in there manipulating a lot of stuff. Maybe they're buying this. I'm not 100% sure. We do have some down kind of bearish engulfing candlestick there. Another bearish engulfing candlestick here. Makes me think this wants to go and head down a little bit lower, like a small pullback. We'll see what happens. Here's the dollar. The dollar obviously broke to the downside of this trend line here. Broke to the downside, and we've been kind of stair-stepping lower. Are we going to find support right here and move on up, or is this thing going to move on down? I don't have the answer for you. I'd like to see what the markets do here. I'll look at it from a different trading viewpoint. This is from the DXY. To me, it looks like we broke to the downside. A clear break if you draw it in like this. And I think this is, even if this were to come up, the trend is lower over time. You can see this one broke right up to the upside. This one broke to the downside. So I think lower dollar. Here's the dollar to Swiss franc ratio, the last commodities bull market from late 90s all the way till 2008. We had a declining dollar overall. Obviously, this thing moves all around over time. It's not a straight line. And then between the commodity bull markets like '08, and this was the '08 crash in here, between these two, the dollar firmed up in relationship to the Swiss franc. It went sideways, and now we're heading back down. It is weakening in relationship to the Swiss franc. The dollar is signaling what I think is going to be a commodities bull market. Now, here's something I want to touch on, Bitcoin. I charted this out last time and showed you guys this rising wedge pattern. It broke to the downside of the rising wedge pattern. Let's zoom in here. I said there's going to be a bull trap, potentially, where it sucks in bulls and then this thing's going to come back down. Perhaps. I zoomed in, and no, this isn't the same chart. This is a different, I'm zoomed in right here. Another increasing wedge pattern breaking to the downside. This thing could go quite a bit lower. It looks like it's rolling over. It looks like it's putting in a top, and that we could potentially see a pullback in Bitcoin. Here's Ethereum. Now, Ethereum, this thing's going vertical. Way up there, straight vertical. I wouldn't be chasing this. This looks like a blow off top. that's just what I'm seeing. And if Daddy's rolling over Bitcoin, Ethereum will probably follow in a little bit. Here's the NASDAQ composite. It's looking kind of toppy here. I wrote about Tesla, and we can look at some of those companies earlier in some other presentations that it had signs of it wanting to roll over. This could be rolling over. Now, does this mean that we're going to just have this big old market crash? It doesn't mean that. We don't know necessarily what this is going to look like. I don't see yields declining. I don't see people running to bonds. What I think is happening is that interest rates are going to weigh these technology companies down, and that you could see these guys roll over potentially. Here's Tesla, and you can see it kind of rolling over, like it doesn't want to go anymore. And we're getting kind of these big down days. And we'll see if this continues. I mean, it's not totally far gone, but it's one to watch and one to see what it does. Are interest rates going to weigh on these technology companies? I think they will over time. It doesn't mean that they're going to have this necessary big, huge blowout downside move. Remember, these things can, I mean, it could be like a slow kind of pullback like this one in late 2018 to 2019. You could just see this thing kind of slowly pull back. The Trade Desk, this is another hot technology company that people like to trade. Big down days, small up days. This looks like it's topping and wants to pull on back. This looks like a big pullback to me. Same with Roku, same thing. Is it a pullback that looks something like this? It very well could be a pullback like this. Very well could be. And that's what it looks like it is. This one, Apple, looks like it's putting in a top, kind of a shoulder head. Maybe we're putting in a shoulder right now with a bearish piercing right there. That's looking kind of toppy. Amazon putting in the bearish engulfing if it ended there. So this thing seems like it's ceasing to move on up. Maybe it pulls on back. And remember, I don't know the length and duration of these pullbacks. It just looks toppy, and the chart candlestick patterns look like they're putting in a short-term top. Here's ARK, Innovation ETF. It is bearish engulfing, bearish, 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 bearish. It seems like this thing's wanting to top out. And then you just see from this point on, lots of big down days, small up days. It looks like this wants to, it's in a pullback mode. How much? I'm not exactly sure. If we start blowing through these 200 days, maybe it pulls back more. Is it the end of the world? It's not the end of the world. But that's Kathy Woods. I just wanted to show that. I know a lot of her funds are very heavily invested in Tesla, and like a 10, 11, 12% stake in Tesla. And if Tesla does poorly, some of her funds, I think, won't do very well. So that's what I have for an overall market condition. I don't see this huge run into bonds. I don't see copper falling. I don't think a market crash like the market can come down, but I don't see like a blowout crash, like a panic crash. That doesn't mean we can't have one, but people are not running to bonds. I don't see the dollar in this really strong position, and I don't see yields. So if people are running to bonds, you see bond prices go up and yields go down. And if people were really afraid, they'd sell copper, and copper would sell off too before the crash, if there is one that's coming. I don't see one coming, at least using these metrics. So I'm continuing to hold. I'm just holding my commodity stocks and companies, sectors, whatever you want to call them, and I'm just holding. So let me know what you guys think. Put it in the comment section. Love to hear what you guys' opinions are. Overall, technology looks a little toppy to me, and Bitcoin does as well. If you guys like this content, give me a thumbs up, and thank you for listening. This is Finding Value.